Yo, hey, family, what's going on? This is Doug Reed with the Let's Go Show. Once again, I'm excited, man. Anytime that I get an opportunity to speak to young brothers, to learn from young brothers, oh, you know I'm in the right place, man. So I'm with Nafis Ricks. We're going to talk about some things. I met Nafis probably during COVID, right, Nafis? I think.
Yep, during COVID 3 years ago.
Yeah, during COVID. So we're gonna get into that. But first I gotta, check on him. How you doing, brother? What's going on?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we're gonna dive into your story, man, because whew, I love the game. Now we talking about this game of life, man. So let's just kind of jump right into it, man. So, we start anywhere you want to, but tell me about this kid Nafis, man.
Ooh, well, first, thank you for having me once again for having me on the show. I think it's always important, just as a black man, when we had these discussions, we always got to start from our childhood. A lot of times we see the after product, I guess the manly man of us, and we never go back to our childhood traumas. So for me, as I think about my journey up to this point as a young kid, growing up in Philadelphia and partial North Carolina, the things that I felt like that was hindering me as I was growing up was not being able to articulate myself when I was going through struggles with who I was, my mother and father not being together, not seeing them like intimate in the sense, not as like in a sexual way, but hugging and giving each other positive as a kid because I wasn't how to treat women as far as give her things of that nature while I got older. So all those things impacted my life as I was becoming a young man, and not knowing that gun violence, not having a proper guidance when you're talking about articulating yourself. Like my father was education, education, education. So he was more like a drill sergeant. So when you get that in the household, and he brought us out of this environment in Philadelphia and moved us to North Carolina. It was shell shocking at first. I think a lot of times you have a lot of resentment towards your father because it's a male figure that's holding you accountable and not realizing the lessons and the tools that he's giving you at an early age. And it's more like, yo, you too hard on me. Uh,
Hmm.
he wanted me to get out the environment, me and my little brother. And at the time, I didn't know. We just got in the car. He pretty much like I'm taking my boys like from my mom, and she was in like she knew that was the best decision for us. But the way it happened, I just didn't understand it. So growing up in Philadelphia, you got your houses built it up. Man, we get in the car, we driving down Virginia, we passing Virginia, we get down to North Carolina. I wake up, I'm like, yo, I never seen this much grass in my life. So at that time, I'm like, man, why are you taking away? Why are you taking away from our mother? Like, I don't even know I don't even know how to respond. But I know my dad is an authority figure, so it's always the respect. I just was
Hmm.
angry and just mad and just didn't know how to articulate myself. So it had it built up a lot of anxiety in me. It built up a lot of resentment, not knowing what the future was going to hold, in a
Let me
sense.
ask you something though. I mean, because uh, and you said it, not not being able to articulate yourself, not being able to express what you were feeling. So not being in that kind of position, even as a young man, what was some of the things you did, or I mean, was there a way to cope with that, or you just kind of, as we say, you just kind of put that on your shoulder?
I think it's a combination of playing sports and really channel my anger towards people that like I can remember when we first moved to North Carolina, I was getting a lot of trouble. I just couldn't get adjusted. It was a diverse school. I had Spanish kids, I had white kids in my school, I had black kids, and the school was built out. So mind you, I'm like, man, what is going on? Like, I don't even know. I'm used to schools built up and it's all black kids. So you get in this environment, you just picking fights. Like you the new kid, you really don't fit in. You don't talk the same. Spanish is like the second language there, or what have you. And you're getting on a school bus. I never rode a school bus until I got down to North Carolina. Like a school bus for the
Not the
students, not a
yellow
city
bus,
bus, but a
bro.
school bus.
Not the
The
yellow
yellow
bus.
bus.
The yellow bus. All
Yeah,
right.
with uniform. So I'm just like, man, I'm not used to this. So sports was my outlet to really uh, really show who I was in the sense of I was getting my aggression out because I was so angry. So I'll play football, I'll play basketball, I'll play anything that was physical where I can exhaust the things that I was going through within my household. Because once again, my father, it was an authority figure, it was the ultimate respect. And I live with my grandfather. My grandfather was a guy, he was old school. So, yo, you got to man up. Like, that's just what it is. Like, it ain't no, you got to learn how to wash your clothes. You got to learn how to do these things. And, that was just a tough journey for me growing up.
And let me ask you, even with that, I mean, I'm glad you said that because now this is probably one of the most important things as we start, because even within our families, we can only go back a certain, I would say maybe 2, 3 generations. It's very seldom that we can go back like 4 generations, but you mentioned your father and you mentioned your grandfather. So that's a solid foundation. And, we think about what comes at you said, I was a drill sergeant too. So I know my kids would definitely agree with you because it comes a certain level of authority, comes a certain level of discipline. And that's what we're used to. And you said it, and we'll talk more, that sports was your outlet to kind of a coping mechanism to release for things that you were holding. But how important was that foundation for you coming up? Even though, in all respect for your dad and all respect for your grandpa, how important was that foundation for you during those times?
I wouldn't have it any other way to this day. Like the lessons that I got as a kid, it shaped me who I was today, and even my mentality about life. It's certain things that I know I needed. Like you said, you was in the military, you understood. So when my pop used to do, when we got in trouble, he used to make us kneel in the corner and read a book and put our head into the corner. So for me, it's like that was worse than getting a beating. Like, yeah, my dad used to like you did something wrong. I didn't really get in trouble, but when I did, you either want that belt or you're gonna kneel in the corner and you're gonna have to do a book report on what you read and then give it back to him. If it's not right, do it again. So that right there for me, one thing my dad was stuck to me. He said, "I'll never let nobody else harm you, but I refuse for you not to be respectful, not be held accountable before I lose you to the streets." And for that right there, I thank him to this day because with all those things, even if it hurt mentally, physically, I knew how to withstand myself when I got in the streets. I knew how to hold myself accountable. I knew what my pop said. I'm going to discipline you before the cops discipline you or before the streets discipline you. I'm gonna take that so now you know what it feels like. If you come back home, this is the result of what's gonna happen. So right there, it sticks with me to this day. And that's how I kind of operate in my life.
Wow. So tell me about these younger years, man. How were they? I mean, you said you played sports and, you had some anger issues, but, tell us about some significant events in your early childhood.
Uh yeah, just growing up in North Carolina at that point, I would fly back to Philly every summer. My oldest brother was living with my mother in Philadelphia, so we'll fly back and forth for the summer. So I'll get a little taste of Philly in the summer, super hot water ice and things of that nature. And I was trying to prove myself when I came back to Philly because now I was a country boy. I was wearing Jabot jeans, big white T-shirts, and everybody in the city was wearing Dickie pants and Tims and all that. So I'm trying to. It's kind of like I'm infused with both. I'm from Philly, but I'm not at the same time, and just trying to figure it all out. But one significant thing that happened to me as a kid is that I lost my brother's gun violence when I was in the eighth
Mm.
grade. I was 14, he was 19 years old, and in Philadelphia, it's like the wild wild west. You just never know. And talking to him the night before, it struck a chord in me that he was planning on sending some Jordans, and the next morning, I get a phone call. I'm at school. It's like 9 a.m. in the morning. I get pulled out of the classroom, and I get the news that my brother was just murdered 9 a.m. in the morning. And as a kid, you can't really process that. That's not something that's normal. And I never had nobody that close that to me to gun violence. Like whether like I had my great grandparents or aunts and stuff, they died because of old age or any ailments and stuff. But you're not prepared to lose a sibling at 14 years old, and he's 19 at 9 a.m. in the morning. Like that cry that my mom had when I got on the phone, it's something that I know from any mother that has lost their son or somebody to them. I know that cry, and it won't stop.
Mm-hmm. And even, I mean, you said something too. not the gun violence, but I lost a cousin. I think Terry was like 18. But just, I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
said something too. Somebody that close to me, because when somebody's
Mm-hmm.
that close to you, like you say, you're not even. I mean, I think for myself, like I'm not really even understanding death as it is itself. I'm not even understanding. I talk about the 8 dimensions of wellness, but and one of the things is our spirituality, our foundation. Like I'm not even understanding who the creator is. Like going to church or whatever. So I don't know how to deal with that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I can only imagine for you and your brother being close and talk to him like the day before, how that felt. And now we have to process this pain. How did you process that pain?
I don't think I never. I don't think I never did. I think I just did a lot of crying. I was doing a lot of reflecting. I was looking for answers that wasn't there. For me, you get parts of the story. I'm living in a different place in North Carolina. I don't really know the streets of Philadelphia, so me getting thrown back in that, I wasn't a street kid. My father didn't raise us to do street activity, meaning that I didn't have to sell drugs. I didn't have to try to fit in. My father was a disciplinary. He already did that in his life. The one thing that he told me, he's like, I'm never going to put you in a position to compromise yourself. So for me, just trying to process it, it was difficult because it was like, what happened? How did it get to this point? Like my brother wasn't a street guy. It was doing this. He might have been a little here and there, but it wasn't like. So as you get the story, as I get older now, I get parts of the story. Your brother was doing this, or this would happen. So I'm still trying to process it together. I think it would be a never-ending process because I look at my nephew, which is his son, and they look exactly alike. And I'm always trying to pick his brain on what would it be like if you had your father there, because I had that. So for me, I think it's a never-ending process.
Yeah, you know what? And once again, you said it again. So, and I've said it on this podcast a few times. Like my father was shot and killed when I was 4. Him and his buddy
Mm,
had a disagreement who was oldest. Buddy pulls out a gun, boom, shoots him in the head. But
mm,
like you said, I never had any answers. Like nobody talked about it. Actually, my anger was, when you're coming up those years, people talk about it. Well, your mom this, your mom that, your dad this, and when people used to talk about my dad, I should automatically fight. They'd be like, "Yo, don't
mm,
say nothing about Doug's dad." Like, no, don't say nothing. But the thing about it, nobody ever told me the story. Like I wanted to hear the story. I mean, and we learn it. I mean, we'll talk about some things that you're doing, but I needed
mm-hmm.
that closure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I needed just for myself to have an account, like what actually happened. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I was only 4. Like how what kind of guy was he? Like you're saying, like you said, I heard bits and pieces about this, about that. So I never got the closure. So, and I can only imagine what you going through that process. The relationship that y'all had, and then, and I think in our families too, when we experience something like that, everybody takes on our protection. So that's why we don't hear the whole story because they take on the
Mm-hmm.
protection, but and
Mm-hmm.
not allowing us, to have those moments. We'll get into mental health piece, but actually having those moments, even at a table, and
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, let me just tell you the story of how this went down because I know how it has affected you. We don't have them kind of discussions, and I imagine, that's what you dealt with, so kind of
Yeah.
fast forward. I mean, go ahead, because I know something you want to share even in regards to that.
Yeah. It's I think a lot of time is guilt when people know about the story. And it's like, what can I have done? And it's like, let me be the judge of that. Like give me that opportunity to be the judge. At the end of the day, I believe in God. I believe that it happened for a reason. And my life could have took a left turn real fast. I could have been one of those guys to be retaliating. And I know in my heart, I think everybody has something inside them to know who they are authentically, holistically. And for me, I'm going to take up a persona that was never me, that's never been ingrained in me. Now, I'm going to protect myself. That's a different story. But to go out and try to figure out who the person, It's too many leaps and bounds to do that. So
Let
for
me
me,
stop.
it's more,
Yeah, let me
yeah.
stop you, brother. I gotta stop you because you just dropped a real serious gem. You said what you could have done, but you said that wasn't in your persona to go back for the retaliation and basically to go back and be something that you're not. Because what happens with us as men, the first thing we do is get defensive. First thing we do is get into this thing where our emotions take over. And and if we're not careful and not smart enough or having the foundation that you have, we end up making some real irrational decisions. And when we make those irrational decisions, I worked in a prison for 25 years. There was a whole lot of guys in there for making irrational decisions. So I just wanted to highlight that. And then I wanted to applaud you, as they say, give you your flowers for being mindful enough, because now we're talking about having being in the right state of mind, even though we dealt with that trauma, but being in that right state of mind to say things that I'm not going to do because that's just not how I'm made up, because I have a foundation that started with my grandpa, my father, and this is something that I'm not going to get myself into. So I applaud you
Mhm.
for that.
No, I appreciate that. And then sometimes, like you constantly asking yourself questions about how to been. And for me, it's just like it happened, and I think it came. His death still lives on to this day, meaning that I still have people that was older than me that like, oh, you Mike's little brother, and they'll tell me a story. I'm like, the guy was only here for 19 years, 19 years on this planet, but he did a whole lot in that time. But it made me wake up and say, I got a purpose in life. Like when people often say, well, my purpose is this person, my purpose is not my brother's purpose. My brother lived on for us either connect with certain people or remove certain people out your life. So my purpose is to impact as many people as I can with some of the skills that I learned going through my own trials and tribulations. That's how I'm able to navigate in the space when I'm always looking back. What happened? I'm not asking, why did it happen? What happened? How did we get to this point? Because, oftentimes, like you said, you worked in a prison 23, 25 years. Some of those guys made mistakes off of this urgency. Like, this is what I felt at the time. As they sit back and they got to sit in that prison, they got all the time in the world to think about, but they can't change what happened in the past. So for me, I really sit back. I don't get really boggled with headlines and stuff like that. I kind of stay even kill when I get news that's catastrophic and try to see what's the whole story of this. How did we get here?
Yeah, yeah. Wow, man, that's it. I mean, like I said, big shout out for you for those decisions, and then but life goes on. One of the things that we know about life, and though we face some trials and tribulations, like life goes on. So what were some of the things you did just kind of moving forward?
Once again, sports was my outlet, but so after my brother was murdered, like a year after, I spent another year in high school in North Carolina as a ninth grader. And then 10th grade of January, we decided, me and my little brother decided to move back with my mother. It was just time. Like, it just didn't feel the same. My mom was by herself in Philadelphia. I still had family, but it's like I could hear from the conversation she's really struggling or what have you. And I said, like, it's time. My dad did his job. He did the best job he could. Him and my grandfather. It's time to go back. Like, and it was definitely an adjustment coming from leaving North Carolina to coming back to Philadelphia. So I'm like, yo, what is going on? Like, I go to school, and mind you, my school, I went to Robert E. Lamberton on Sea Line Avenue. And I could have went to neighborhood school, Bartram or West Philadelphia, but I wanted to get out the neighborhood. I see my friends all the time. I was like, let me just go somewhere different. School was building up. I'm going through the metal detector. So I'm like, I've never been in this type of situation before. I feel like I'm being investigated. I'm about to get locked up. I'm like, what do we need at the metal detector? What is really going on?
Mm-hmm.
I seen grown men waiting for the girls to come out. I'm like, ain't y'all supposed to be riding the school bus? They like, no, like, and I'm just thinking in my head, like, this is different for me. I'm used to getting on the school bus for this long. Like, where's the school bus? They like, you get on the city bus, you walk, or you get a ride from somebody. So it was definitely an adjustment for me just to figure out, but I enjoyed it because I was the new
Yeah.
kid. I played sports. it was just a new vibe for me. So I enjoyed my time as I made that adjustment, that transition.
Yeah. So I mean, what sport did you play?
Yeah, basketball. Basketball was kind of my niche. I played all sports. I think tennis was probably my best sport. I just chose not to continue. My pop used to beat on me all the time. And tennis, he taught me how to play tennis, baseball, football. But basketball was, Philadelphia basketball is one of the richest things that's in the city. Very competitive. Each neighborhood, each block has basketball players. And for me, I wanted to, really make an imprint. And so I decided to take on basketball full time.
Okay, so what was just kind of going back, what was the highest amount of points you scored in one game?
So senior year, I scored 56 points and 20. I had 27 rebounds. So I broke the school record at my school. So yeah, that was kind of like the most I had. I actually led the public league or the state in scoring at my senior year at 2006,
Yeah,
35 points a game.
so you was doing one of the Michael Jordan things, like I don't know, like everything I put in, like everything is falling. You know what I mean? Like the
Facts.
basket. I mean, the basket is big, man, and so I mean, and I think about what you were saying, like that was your basketball was your outlet. So as you get, these achievements, 56 points or, people in the crowd cheering you on, now that, your confidence level, now you're feeling like, okay, I can do this. No matter what my trials and tribulations, I got an outlet, I can start to maybe turn this thing into something bigger than what I ever dreamed of, so that passion for the game. And where did that lead you after high school?
So, so growing up in Philly, I mean, living in North Carolina, like you said, that foundational part. So when I got back to Philly, and as I continued to play, I led the state in scoring. I did all those great things, but I had a roadblock. I didn't
Mm,
qualify SAT. I took the SAT my last month before graduation. Nobody in my school told me about this. Actually, I had somebody call me and say, "Are you qualified?" Mind you, I'm thinking, I score all these points. I'm getting a scholarship. My parents can't afford for me to go to school. Like, I'm not burdening them with that. So I got to figure out a way to get myself an opportunity to go to school. So I didn't get an opportunity to go to the Division I school. I knew I was a Division I talent. I just didn't have any guidance right there. And once again, I'm living with my mom, my brother. So just us. So I'm really just trying to make it out. I'm seeing the environment in Philly. I'm like, this ain't really what I want because I see the struggles of what people are facing. And I'm fortunate enough to have my father and my grandfather in my life that gave me the foundation. Some of my friends didn't have that in their household.
mm,
They had a lot of broken households around my neighborhood. So it was very easy to get caught up in those situations where you can compromise yourself by being around. Not even doing that, but just not being around. So for me, I had to go to prep school, Maine Central Institute, MCI up in Maine. Very difficult adjustment for me. Very, very difficult to say the least.
yeah.
Uh, just simply because I did all that. I felt like I did a lot of work in high school. Those 2 years that I played, and I was trying to get my name out there. But I was really like, once again, I was playing angry. I was losing friends to gun violence in the street. I lost my brother, so I was replaying all those things. How can I get myself out of this environment to make something out of myself? Because my homie down the street just got killed. The other one down there shooting. The other one is trying to about to rob somebody. The other so the stories is going on and going on, and I'm with them every day. I'm with these guys. I'm not into it, but I know what's going on. But I'm not trying to jeopardize myself. So I got to get out of this situation. I go to Maine, didn't play. I wasn't mentally ready. I wasn't physically ready. I was like, I was carrying my ego into that situation. It's people all over the nation that's at this one school, and I wasn't good at working. I know how to work hard, but I didn't know how to work basketball game speed and things like that. So I struggled. Like I fell on my face.
Yeah.
I was wore out. Me and the coach bumped heads, and I tell guys all the time, like when a coach recruits you, be straight up and transparent because they at the end of the day, they use card sales. Some gonna be real, some gonna be fake.
Yep.
I didn't get everything that I was promised, which I was a little salty about. But also, one thing that I learned throughout that process, they said never talk down on a coach, whether it's a good situation. It just wasn't a good situation. That's the best that I can describe it. And in January, I had came home and started working at UPS.
Yeah. You know what? Now I'm having flashbacks because I had the opportunity to coach at a junior college, Burlington County College in Burlington, New Jersey. Same thing. We had some of the
Hmm.
top players in the county. Actually, we got some players from Philly. I remember a couple of players out of Constitution. I remember a couple of players out of East Orange. Like we got some good quality players. And the mistake, all of them, I ain't gonna say the mistake, but everybody said they were a D1 player, right? Like, yo, I'm a D1 player.
Hmm.
But the thing that they didn't have, and you said it, they didn't have the grades. And it was like, okay, you don't have the grades, but you're a D1 player. So let's do this then. Okay, so you say you're a D1 player, we're gonna work on your grades. So let's build your resume. You know what I mean? If you're this D1 player, this is the NJCAA, I think it's called. Your resume, you should be one of the top scorers in the league. You should be one of the top rebounders, free throw. Like all this is your resume. But guys, like you said, even you was talking about yourself, just wasn't mature enough to even understand that. And then I think about the recruiting process. One of the things too, as Reggie, Reggie, he always talking about Doug, you digging in the crates. Because I used to be the vice president of the Mid Atlantic District for Mid Atlantic basketball, which covered Philadelphia, some of South Jersey, and Delaware. And I remember a kid, 6'7" kid, matter of fact, I'm gonna say his name, 6'7" kid out of Willingboro. His name was Kyrie Ferguson. Kyrie, slim kid, but the kid could jump and the kid could get rebounds. One thing I know about basketball, you think about the Dennis Rodman, you think about these guys that have a specialty.
Hmm.
Kyrie could always run the floor and grab a rebound. And then
Hmm.
when I talked to him, I never forget, I called him. I was like, yo, just following up on the kid. I was like, yo, where you going? Where you going to school at? He said, I ain't going nowhere. Like, what do you mean you're not going nowhere? How's that possible for a 6'7" kid that has the talent to be not going nowhere? I called the AD, David Riley. I'm putting him out there because me and Dave cool. But I called him like, yo, Dave, what's going on? Same thing. He's like, yo, he wasn't a qualifier. So nobody even understood what a qualifier was back then. Or even kids are probably having that now. To qualify, you got to have a certain percentage. You got to look at the scores. You got to look at the GPA, like all that, and you got to register with the NCAA to make sure that you get into a school. We didn't even
Hmm.
talk about not only the NCAA. We talking about the NAIA. Like those are things that kids don't take an account for. But the thing that I end up doing once he had to go to a junior college. Boom. I had some connections. He goes to a junior college in the Midwest. Um, Lincoln.
Hmm.
I think it was Lincoln. I can't even the full name, but he goes out there, gets his grades, get everything situated, comes back here. I had a friend of mine that was at St. Peter's, comes back here, getting a scholarship, goes to St. Peter's. He does 4 years. But those are the processes as an athlete. And if we don't have the family structure or we lose we don't have the knowledge. Now, of course, technology and things are much more advanced. Even when I play, you play now, that makes it easier. So we're saying, and I know you would say, there's no reason for you not to know based on the fact that you got the World Wide Web at your fingertips. Somebody say qualifier, you can, pull it up on your phone or whatever. But the thing about it is, once you run into those situations where, you go to another school, depending on the situation, might not be the best player. Now you got kids coming from all over the country. You're competing with them. Now, depending on your recruitment process, whether it was the head coach that recruited you or the assistant coach that recruited you, or if the coach got transferred, like
Hmm.
where it leaves you. You know what I mean? You're like, oh wow. But you were able to make that adjustment. What was some of the biggest adjustments that you made that you said, look, I'm gonna make the best of this situation?
Oh, going to sleep and stop carrying the weight of the world where it's not your issues. I really like buckle down on myself when I get like, because like I said, I struggled all through that point. And like I said, when I came home in January, I was just so frustrated. It's like, yo, these are not my problems. I can't save everybody. So I really start honing in myself because I had a lot of embarrassment. I would say this for all athletes going into those situations, you're mentally not mature. And what I mean by that is that you're not mentally or physically ready, even though you put in all this work and like you're not accustomed to structure. And when you don't have structure, it don't matter about the physical appearance of what you can do, throw the ball in the hole. The game of basketball is about your brain. It's about opportunity. It's about what it looks like. So I always tell guys, are you mentally mature enough to handle what goes into it? That means going to study hall. That means going to lift weights. That means, are you ready to go work out? Are you going to spend some time watching film? All those things I wasn't geared to do. I wasn't ready to do. So now, as I look back at it, I'm like, okay, I see my downfalls on what I could have done better. And once again, that foundation was so important. I held myself accountable. I had my brother on me like, yo, you being soft, you weak. And I'm like, this is my little brother. So I'm in the crib working at UPS, the graveyard shift, 11 to 4. They gonna get their money worth throwing them boxes on. Like I
Yes,
didn't broke a
sir.
couple packages.
I
So for
worked there
me,
too, so I already know. From two to, I think I only worked about 2 to 5, and it was the worst days of my life.
I told my mom I wasn't built for picking up no boxes right now. No disrespect to UPS, but
Yes,
I'm not. I need to go back to school. So
I get it.
that was kind of my motivation.
Yeah, and the thing about it too, and when we face with things like that, because you come to a point where you say, what? I mean, and I heard, my fact, big shout out to Charlotte Andrews with Black Man Hill, because I heard her say one time that you have to be selfish for yourself.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You have to become selfish, and then your whole focus has got to be on yourself. I know sometimes we get in, that can get in the way because we, like you said, we want to help everybody. That's our attitude. I mean, we that type of person. But then you have to become selfish with yourself because now you got to focus on you because now you're talking about your life and what you're going to do with your life. Because
Mhm.
nobody's feeding you that opportunity. They
Right.
may be feeding you information, but they're not feeding you the opportunity to take things to the next level. So, what actually got you to the next level?
Uh, perseverance, and as well as just my competition around the city. I started looking at where they were going, the guys that I played against. Philadelphia was very competitive at that time. About hey, your peers are going here. What you doing? And you in your neighborhood, you supposed to be the guy. When we playing in summer league, and you at the crib, and they like he at Division 1 or he going to the NBA. It's like you got to do something. So that was kind of like my preparation, and like I need to be doing this full time, and it's no reason to get embarrassed. It's an alternate route, which I went to junior college as well in Kansas, Johnson County Community College in the Midwest, and my career kind of just took off from there. It was like a reinvention of who I was to show, I'm Division 1. I can play at this level.
I'm sorry, because I think Johnson was in that league with Lincoln. Was it? Do you remember
Uh,
Lincoln?
so Lincoln, I think the Lincoln that you're talking about is an NAIA school, and it's close to St. Louis, and this is the
Okay.
same one.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
I'm not
yep.
sure, but it's funny how, you get in conversations, you see that, things, how paths actually cross. But no, go ahead. I ain't mean to interrupt
No, no, no. So I just kind of reinvented myself, or what have you. I went freshman of the year, All American my freshman year, and once again, I was carrying that trauma that I had since I was a kid into junior college, and that was another adjustment. Being really around majority of white people, and only the athletes are black on campus. So I'm like, first of all, I'm in Kansas. I never thought I would be in Kansas, but
you.
I'm here now. I got my own apartment with two of my teammates, and this is not like affiliated with the school. So we gotta like pay bills, find a way to school and stuff. So it really taught me how to be a man. And like I said, I always applaud my father and my grandfather for giving me that opportunity, as well as my mom by entrusting in us. Like, go ahead, y'all young men now, y'all can handle what's going on. We prepared y'all well. So I always lean on that. And then my second year, I pretty much broke every record or got every award. Won National Junior College Player of the Year, National Championship, back to back All American. But I was faced with another. I lost my cousin to gun violence in North Carolina. So it was like come on, y'all, like what's going on? So
Wow.
I had to deal with that once
Yeah.
again.
And then would you end up transferring from Johnson? Where'd you end up going?
Missouri State under my coach Conzo Martin from East St. Louis.
Okay.
I picked her. I was very transparent. I was very like I told myself I need to be playing for a black coach. I need somebody who can be an extension of my father and my grandfather.
Mm.
So all my visits,
You know I ain't gonna let you
got
get
you
away because you gotta
for sure.
you gotta say that again. I mean, because
So
that has so much value. So please say that again.
so the one thing I told the coach when he was recruiting me, I said, I don't need you to coach me on the basketball court. I need you to coach me in my life. I need you to be the extension of my father and my grandfather. Because I know whatever work I'm gonna put on the court, it's gonna be come because of me. Like so, I needed somebody to be there, just like my father, and my grandfather, and that's what he gave me.
Wow. Wow. So you do what, 2 years there?
2 years there, we wound up winning the conference championship. First time ever in history at Missouri State in history. My senior year, won 26 games. We had 9 losses. We went to the NIT. We got snubbed by going to the NCAA tournament. All five of my teammates that started with me, we all went through the trenches together. But it was a great opportunity to
Yeah.
see with more of myself, and I hit my stride of like I made it. Like I was at Division One, I could say that I had a good career, you know, and the rest is history.
Yeah, but now we gotta, school's over.
Yeah,
We gotta come back to, come back to Philly.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
So yeah, I had to come back. I had to come back to Philly, and I was expecting a newborn. I had my daughter was just being born 2012. I graduated 2011 with my bachelor's. 2012 came around, so I was blessed to have a little daughter named Zoe. And my life is like, all right, you're a man now. You having kids and all that. So my mom like, what you doing? Like, so I'm like, I'm trying to play overseas. So my first year,
mhm.
that was during a lockout. So I turned down a deal taking Slovakia because I was scared because I didn't have no information about this country. This is my first time leaving the country. I got a
Yeah.
newborn, but I need some information. Like I don't know what it is. So I remember I still probably got the email and I turned it down. The guy said, "Well, it's not like we're getting Derrick Rose anyway." So in my head, like he tried to like was talking bad about me, but I didn't get a job because a lot of all the NBA guys was coming to the overseas.
Oh
So I had
wow.
to I had to stay home and come to TSS work. I had to use my degree. So that was kind of like as a gut punch, but I got to spend time with my daughter and got to see her mature. But the next year, the first deal I got, I was gone. Finland was my first opportunity to go play professional basketball. And that's kind of where my journey started.
Let me ask you, what would you say? Uh, because the circle gets smaller every level.
Mm-hmm.
From high school, the transition to college, from college to the pros, like it becomes very small. What would you say to a kid that's coming out of high school, um, has a, a fair year, let's say in college, still has aspirations and dreams to go to the NBA? What would you suggest to him, or what would you tell him, or what guidance would you give him in reference to playing overseas?
Find out your why. Like why do you want to do this? And understand that this is a business. The thing is, it's political, it's also situational. And if the games was to stop, it was taken away from you right now, what else could you do while you were overseas? Because overseas basketball, you're adjusted to lifestyle, not just basketball, lifestyle, culture, food, living, difference as far as how big, like how much food abundance. So you have to adjust. So what would you be doing if you can have the best of both worlds? That's what I would say to you. Why are you doing this?
Wow, that's good information, man. I remember, not on a basketball level, but I mean, for me, granted, I was in the military. I went to Germany. I was like, yo, what the heck is going on over here?
Mm-hmm.
But fortunate to be, even yours is a little different because you probably wasn't as fortunate to be around as many Americans as I was, because that's a whole nother isolation in itself when you make that transition, especially to another country, another language, like you said, another culture. Like, then you start thinking, how long am I going to be here? How long can I withstand, all these pressures, outside pressures to be here? You make a little money, you know, but can you stay over there for the rest of your life? Do you want to go back to the States? NBA ain't calling. Do I try to go to the NBA? Do I try to get in the G League? Like, what did I do? And I think that was so important why you said you got to know your why.
Hmm.
So you come back from overseas for playing, still working on your why, still working on your purpose. Now what do
Hmm.
you?
So,
Now, go ahead.
so as my career came to a halt, like I always tell a story about I had like 5 agents, and that's not good. Like in 3 year career of overseas, that's not. So it's like I'm continuously asking for help. I really don't know the protocol on how to approach these people. I'm just reaching out to people. Oh, I can hoop, I can hoop, I can hoop. You got film and stuff like that. So when I finally got done, I was tired of leaving, uh, putting my career in someone else's hand as far as an agent to tell me whether I was going to get a job or not. That's frustrating. I got a newborn. I, the mother of my child is not expected. She's like, what are you doing? Like, we got to put food on the table for our child. So it's for me, it's like, you get frustrated with yourself. You beat yourself up. Like, I'm good enough. So I just when I called it quits, I called it quits on my own. I came back and I got an opportunity to coach at Emerald Tech Charter High School as an assistant coach.
Let me ask you
Uh,
too, real quick. What advice would you give a young man dealing with an agent?
Stop treating agents like just because you sign with an agent that you are going to the promised land. Do
Mm,
your homework on the agency, do your homework on the agent, and talk to some of the players that's under the agency and that's under that particular agent you're signing to, and tell you and to show you before you sign how they operate and can they almost not almost guarantee, but can they? It's pretty well intended on how they go about their process to get you a job. That's what I would say to a guy
right.
that's trying to figure out how to navigate.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Once again, you know, they might have to pay both of us, just for this information that you give them, man. Because I think this is so vital because this is the stuff that especially athletes get it mixed up because they think everything is easy. They think because they got the talent that they automatically go into the league. Like those percentages are real, and not to hamper anybody's dream,
Slim.
but the chances of going are not very or the chances of going are very very small. So now you're back, you come back, you're raising a young daughter. You got a degree. And now what do we do?
I start working at schools. I worked at Boys Latin middle school. I got an opportunity to use my degree, and just being in schools and seeing like all boys school, you really get to learn the young kids because they always see, oh, you got muscles, you play ball, so they want to challenge you and stuff like that. So I got back into the schools and kind of like a mentor and really guiding them, and just from my personal experience. And some of those kids, I knew their parents or their aunts and uncles, so it was very easy to I'm gonna walk up to your block. If I'm having an issue with you, I'm gonna knock on your door. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, it was fulfilling because I got to see my impact through playing the game of sports. Uh, and as I continued to do that, I was coaching at Emerald Tech once again. So worked at Boys Latin in middle school, and then went to go coach at Emerald Tech. In the meantime, we blowing teams out. We one of the top hottest teams in the state or in the country. We blowing teams out. And then that's when I'm like, man, it's hard to get on a player or get on the guys when we beating about 50. We beating everybody about 50. I'm like, I need to be challenged. I want to get a graduate assistant position.
Yeah.
So my coach that coached me at Missouri State just had got the job at University of Missouri with Michael Porter, his first year, Dante Porter, Jeremiah Tillman. These are the guys he had coming in. So he did real good for his first year. So I called him. I'm like, listen, I'm trying to be a coach. I'm trying to get into the game. Do you have an opportunity to become a graduate assistant? So he's like, yeah. I said, who you think about? It's about you. So I'm like, I'm gone. Like I'm going back to Missouri. I took the first thing because once again, what I said to you earlier about I need somebody to coach me in my life. Now I'm on the other side. So now I'm not looking at the basketball part. I'm looking like now I'm going to learn under him on his staff.
Mm-hmm.
So from that point on, it was a no brainer. I'm like, yeah, I speak his language. I understand where you're coming from. And then like he gave me an opportunity of a lifetime just to get a master's degree for free and an opportunity to be around his team and impact young men.
Wow. And then, I mean, but even during this process, uh, now we reflect back to the little boy, uh, you know, his brother is shot and killed, and playing ball, and other family members, friends. Uh, there's this thing around gun violence and it still is at all time high. Um, Starting to learn how to deal with his emotions, starting to learn how to deal with the trauma, kind of figured his way out with the coping mechanisms. Was an opportunity to pour into young men, even in high school and even at the collegiate level. So being a man has a whole nother definition with a foundation that you come from. But then again, you see and hear so many different stories. And now you're saying, look, I got an education. How do I get back? What gets you into this, this thing as a buzzword is now, and it's mental health. But this goes, and I tell people, and I'll interview some guys that's been doing this thing for 20 years. That trauma you dealt with for 20 years or so, but now you realize, look, I got to make an impact this way. When was that decision made, or if you can recall, or the situations as far as what you're doing today, going to school, and then wanting to, tell us your things that you're doing now.
Yeah, so it started off getting that graduate assistant position. Like once again, I went into a situation where I thought I wanted to coach at the Power Five schools, the big time schools, to see what it was, see what it's like. So my first year, 2019, I started seeing myself. I'm like, man, this is great, but I know I'm old enough to respect the coaches, but I'm young enough to respect the players in their space. So I have that nice balance. I'm 30 years old at the time, and I'm learning myself, and I'm like, I'm telling my personal story. Like I can relate that too. So I'm like the middleman between. Also, we have a we have a psychologist on staff. We have a mental performance coach. I start looking at them, and I'm like, they're not even going to y'all. They coming to me, and I'm referring them to y'all.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, if that's the job, I need to be doing that because that's more fulfilling than the basketball going the whole. I like the life stuff, so that's more. I like people with substance and things of that nature. I need
Mm.
to know, like, I want parents to know if I'm a part of something that their kids are taken care of holistically, not just because they can shoot the ball great or they can dunk the ball. Like, I need y'all to know because I'm a parent that when you in our care, we got to give you everything you got to be successful because most of the time the NCAA is filled with black men and black women. So when you're seeing that, it's like I know where you're going, and if where you're going back to, if you go back in that situation, you're going back to a sick environment. So for me, that's kind of when my mind opened up. Let alone when I heard about PhDs was for free or getting a master's was for free. I'm like, wait a minute, I
Mm.
could become a psychologist and dress the way I do, and I can be inside the practice, and I don't have to be actually in the game plan, and I
Yeah.
can still enjoy the game on my own accord. That's my job. That's my purpose. That's my purpose. So that's kind of how I found it. Kind of fell in my lap to be honest.
And what are you doing now?
So currently, right now, I'm at Georgia
Well,
State University.
yeah. Let me
Oh,
let me let me yeah. Let me because I can't because I already gave this young lady the credit already because you got to tell us the young lady that you're involved with and how y'all met and tell her name because I see the work that she do. So let's take care of that because I don't want to get you in no trouble. Like yo, you did an interview, you ain't never mentioned me. So let's take care of business first.
for sure, for sure. So this story, I'm gonna make it smaller because it's wild how this happened. But my fiance, LaShayla Dawson, senior director of athlete player relations at Overtime Media Company. We met around 2012 as just friends. Me and my guy Scoop Jardine was getting ready for the draft out in LA. I was helping him. I was kind of like managing, so I was basically like his right hand man as he going through his process. And I ran into this woman, LaShayla Dawson, at Pangos All American Camp. Mind you, coming from Philadelphia, LA, we like, yo, what is going on? This is amazing. Like, LA is not real. Like I'm like, and we get to watch hoops at a high level, but she was working at camp, and I'm like, wow, who is this? I'm like, who is this woman? She got Gucci slides on, a Gucci bag. And I'm not used to women working a camp, like a high level camp with pros and stuff. You just don't see that.
Right.
Seen her there. She actually was mentoring Markel Walker, which she's from my neighborhood. She went to UCLA. That was
Okay.
she was her mentee. And when we ran into each other at the Drew League game, we ran into each other. She's like, "That's the guy that I seen from Bengals the day before." It's crazy how a girl from my neighborhood that went to UCLA is her mentor. We exchanged numbers and we just stayed friends. Uh, it got up to around 2015, 2016. She got an opportunity to become go to the front office. She's in basketball as well. She played at Robert Morris college basketball and volleyball. So she said I didn't want to play basketball because there was no money for women. That's how she felt that
Mm-hmm.
was able to do what she wanted to do. So she said I want to get in the business behind sports. She got an opportunity to work in the front office for the Philadelphia 76ers when I'm like, wow, I was ready on my way to go to LA or just like this made it even better or come to Atlanta. So as soon as she got off the plane, I kind of just scooped her up and like, hey, I'm gonna take care of you. You're in my city, and the rest is kind of history. And we've been rocking ever since.
That's what's up, man. I've never met her, but I have met her through the joy that I see in you. I'll just put it that way. Um, so I definitely want to make sure we acknowledge her, and you're down in Atlanta now, making an impact. Now you say you're going to
Appreciate it.
school. What are you actually studying in school right now?
Yeah, so I had to go back. This is my second master's at Georgia State Clinical Mental Health Counseling Program. I'm on my I just finished up my first year of school. I got one more year internship as I get ready to get licensed and stuff and go through that process. But it's been great to say the least to actually do something that's fulfilling that I feel like I've been doing like it's an eight. It's just like my second gift from God,
Mm.
and really getting the skills and techniques to open up these conversations like we're having to bring back to my community and show a face where I understand the street, I understand these conversations that we have, I understand that I got to speak truth to power too as well. So yeah, I got one more year of internship, and then I'll be venturing off to the PhD to get my degree, my PhD in counseling or clinical psychology, and become a doctor.
Yes, sir. Man, I'm so proud of you.
Appreciate it.
Wow. I mean, that's just, I mean, even humbling for me to know you. I'll put it that way. Because I've met you. We was talking about George, and that was over, I think, in West Philly at an event he was having, and we just, same thing. We just vibe. Vibed in so many different things, and I had the opportunity when I was working with Black Man Hill last year to meet your dad. So I get the foundation, but now, you know, let's say you got everything, education is out of the way. Um, Fiance, you know, how they say has a ring on it. Well, I know she got a ring, but she got a bigger ring this time. Um, and life is good. But what is that the whole, because you talked about the purpose, you talk about, the goals, you talk about the why. Like, what's the perfect picture for the future?
So I did a stat. I did some research on this, and once again I went to my why. Do I want to become a doctor? My why is based on I didn't know no doctors growing up in my neighborhood, particularly black men and black women. The only time I knew about a doctor was if you break an arm or you have a tragedy, losing someone to the streets. That's the only doctor that I knew. The perfect picture for me for this upcoming to increase the numbers of black psychologists, black men and black women. It's 0.7% from the data that I found it as black men in the world of doctors in general. So you can only imagine what it is in psychologists, and it's only 3% to 4% of therapists in the world, black men and black women. So my goal is to increase the numbers by thousands and billions, if that is even a number that I can and create programming around uh, programming to get more black and brown people in this space to become psychologists and things of that nature because we need it out here. We got a lot of vulnerable people that's have traumatic experience, and I want to change that. I want to up that number by 50%.
Wow, I love it, brother. I love it. I love it. I love it. So before we close out, um, you've been dropping gems, but I'm gonna let you think about it because I want you to drop another one, or give me something that it could be something that you want to tell a young man, you want to tell our culture, um, but tell me what's on your heart that you just want to share with everybody right now.
A quote that I always use, Frederick Douglass quote: "It's easy to build strong children than to repair broken men." And I always say that because when as you grow up, you get stuck in your ways, and conversations is not as easier as they once was. And I think the earlier we had these conversations about mental health, what does it mean about mental wellness, then the conversations get easier as adults because you're programmed and trained to have these conversations where it's not stigmatized or it's not frowned upon because this is your normal conversation. So that's something that I want to leave with the viewers and people that's out there that's searching for their healing or just don't even know how to come up with the conversation.
Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Doug Reed with the Let's Go Show with Nafis Ricks down in Atlanta, Georgia. Brother, it's been a pleasure. I thank you so much for just coming on the show, just telling your story, sharing your story. I say everybody can tell a story, but it's another level of healing. It's another level of maturity. It's another level of just life when you're able to share your story. So I thank you for coming on. And you know what I say? Let's go, baby. Peace. We out.
Appreciate you.